Test, 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 says the World Health Organization to all countries across the globe that are battling the coronavirus challenge. The perception is that India is still massively under testing. Although the Indian Council for Medical Research has expanded its testing protocols, there is a sense that we should be testing much more and involving the private sector much more. Joining me now is Dr. Naveen Dang, who of course heads the capital's best known laboratory where we all come for tests. Dr. Dang, your lab is still not testing for coronavirus. Is that correct?
Barkha, unfortunately, no. Till now, we are not testing. We are awaiting orders from the regulatory authorities who will inform us whether we are allowed testing or not. Once we get the approval, then only we'll proceed further.
What is your sense? Are we in serious danger of under-testing?
Looking at the statistics, looking at the opinion of the world epidemiologists and academicians, I strongly feel that we require much more testing than what we are doing. We need to move forward at a faster pace to see that more and more are tested and people who test positive are isolated out. The question which I've always asked is that so many tests will go waste, so what? Tests going waste is better than even a single life being lost. The country is in danger, all of us admit it. And with all humility, I can say that all of us should join hands and move forward to that. So what if few tests get wasted? So what if few extra patients are tested? But even you're able to pick up handful positives and isolate them, I think that's going to be extremely helpful.
So what is exactly the problem? Is it a shortage of kits? Because even though there might eventually be a shortage of kits, right now we are actually testing below our existing capacity.
Well, Barkha, this answer can only be given by the authorities because at the moment what is my impression is that the number of tests being performed are certain, but the government claims, and maybe rightly so, the number of kits are available enough. So they are testing the people who go there or whom they feel is appropriate. As far as large number of patients who, by whatsoever reasons, are reluctant to go to the government hospitals and want to go to the private sector. And as we all know, that most of the cases, the first point of contact of every patient, of large number of patients, I can say, is the private sector. So they're coming to us and we are excusing ourselves because we do not at the moment either have the approvals nor do we have the kits to start the testing.
Now, I read in the newspapers that there's confusion over whether the kits need to be certified by America's FDA and EU certified. Newspaper reports suggest that initially that is the ICMR guideline, but that could change. And so far, according to these reports, only one Ahmedabad-based company, Kosara, has this certification. Do you have updated information on this? And given this, what is the difficulty? Let's say tomorrow the government says, Dr. Dang, you can test. What do you have to do to procure the kits? And there seems to be a certain degree of confusion over who all is licensed and what certification is needed to make these testing kits.
Barkha, the options are as follows. Either as per the guideline which we are circulated on Saturday evening, we use FDA and EU approved kits. Those, unfortunately, are not available here.
They're not at all available?
They're not available.
I believe one company
Let me just finish. They're not available as per my knowledge. I may be wrong. To get them imported with the increasing pressure on larger companies for manufacturing, etc., and to have them airlifted out here, then going through all the other processes, that's going to take quite some time, and that will again increase the challenge which we are facing. There are quite a few good Indian companies, which I believe, who have submitted the kits to the regulatory authorities for proper approvals, and approvals are awaited. Just before you walked inside out here, I have come to know that a couple of kits of few Indian manufacturing units have been approved by ICMR, and I'm glad they've been approved. But now, when I called up one of them, the response which we got was that we are still in the process of starting to manufacture. That means once it is approved, then the manufacturing process will start. So as far as I'm concerned, I want to, I have the will to, I have the manpower, I have the infrastructure, but unfortunately without the availability of the kits, and once I get the kits also, please understand, and I'm glad you're talking to me about this, that it has to be very quality based. We can't afford a single test going wrong. So I'll be spending certain amount of time in evaluating those kits in-house, in running the controls. I'm requesting the government to provide us with controls. And understand they have their own limitations also, but we want to have the controls to see whether we are being able to run the test properly or not. You understand by what I mean?
Yeah.
That once I have the kits, it's not like a plug in and plug out.
Yeah. You need time to test them.
I need time to test the kits and to see with the positive control whether my testing procedure is in order or not. So I think it will still take a few days for us to start offering to the people.
So basically, it sounds to me that right now we don't have absolute clarity, one, on whether the kits need US and EU certification. That was the last formal guideline that could change. Mm-hmm. That's one. Two, kit making manufacturers that you have called have said that those kits are not available.
They said that they have a few in stock.
But not enough.
But not enough. And I'm quite sure if just a handful of Indian companies are approved, we'll require them to move fast to make enough kits to satisfy the needs of all the patients and all the labs.
What is the biggest sort of roadblock at this point, Dr. Dang, for someone like you who says, I have the willpower, I have the manpower, I have the human resources, I'm ready? What is the biggest roadblock? Is it regulatory? Is it that the government isn't able to make up its mind on the scale of private sector involvement? Is it the shortage of kits?
See, I do not blame the government, to be very honest, because they have to do it in a very, in a very controlled and a regulated manner.
Right.
Because we just can't be having every lab starting whatever is there. They have to see that the lab will start, have the requisite infrastructure and the requisite manpower to start testing. So the number of labs which should be given and will be given approval are limited. And of course, I would request that we should move at a faster pace. I wouldn't say they, it is we, all of us combined together. And also most important is the manufacturing should be increased. The number of kits availability is more, and so that we can start offering soon. The roadblock, the stumbling block lies where I cannot answer this. But at the moment, as of now, I can say that we should put in the fast forward mode.
There has been an argument from some epidemiologists that instead of waiting for these kits, which is real-time PCR testing, which as I understand in a layperson's language is a kind of genetic test. Can you first explain what we are testing, what we are using currently?
We see, like we know that coronavirus is an RNA virus.
Yeah.
And we look for the RNA.
Yeah.
That is the presence of the specific RNA of this particular virus present in the nasopharyngeal or oropharyngeal swab the patient signifies or proves that the patient has been infected with this particular virus.
Okay.
So the methodology used is real-time PCR.
Right.
We collect the samples with a special swab, and the person who's collecting must be wearing a personal protective equipment, which is extremely important. And again, here I must add that those are also out of stock. So we need them very much in demand because the people who are going to collect the samples need to protect themselves.
This is a very important point. Can you elaborate on this? Because even the resident doctors who are at the front line of even government hospitals who are testing had contacted us and said that, look, on the first couple of days, we did not have the protective equipment we needed. They now say they have it. But let's say your lab starts testing and you need to purchase that protective gear. You're saying it's out of stock?
At the moment, I've not been able to source, and I will not start testing till the time I have enough personal protective equipment for my staff.
Obviously.
For me, it may be my own self, my family, but in a larger way, I can say entire staff who works for me is my extended family. And I want all of them to be very well protected.
Can you explain what specifically in the protective gear is missing or is in short supply, or is it the whole thing?
See, I am a doctor and a scientist.
Yeah.
I cannot go hunting for different pieces of equipment and putting them together.
Yeah.
I want a whole thing. I want whole complete thing. Okay, and one PPE for a single use.
And what all is needed in this PPE?
In that we have mask, we have aprons, we have gloves, we have goggles, and I think the main ingredients of that. And that are given to a person, and we tell them that go wear this, change once you reach that particular place from where you're going to collect the sample. Take the sample, and after that, wear this before taking the sample. After taking the sample, there's certain specific way to roll them, to discard them, put them in certain color-coded bag, and then we transfer it out here. Then we'll be informing, or we inform the waste disposal company with the vendors with whom we are in agreement with, that we are sending you PPEs which have been used for collecting samples of suspected corona patients. So even PPEs are in short supply.
So when you have tried to call to source them, what is the answer that you get?
Not available at the moment. It'll take some time to come. So it's simple. If they say not available, there's nothing more we can do beyond that. So again, it's a request to regulatory authorities that along with the kits, the availability of PPEs is equally important for us, because without that, I cannot expose my staff to suspected patients.
So how do we move from here? Because I'm listening to you and here's what I've understood. The kits are right now not available. It's not just about licensing. The government could license your laboratory to test tomorrow. But once it licenses you, you still need these RT-PCR kits and you still need the protective gear, because you can't expose your staff to testing without it. Have you raised these issues in meetings with the government, with the ICMR, and what response do you get?
Barkha, I'm again, like I'll repeat myself and say that I'm just a doctor, I'm a service provider. I have got no direct connect to ask, because I again feel that it is all the labs who are talking to ICMR, and they already must be burdened by so many calls from so many service providers like me who will be asking the same question. Because this is not the case with me only, this is with the entire lab diagnostic industry, if we may permit it to call so. So they must be inundated with that, and nobody's having them.
One thing I want to ask you is that some epidemiologists have argued, including in interviews to me, that this process of sourcing the RT-PCR kits could be a long drawn one to have enough kits. So we should start looking for alternative ways of testing, and one of those could involve testing for antibodies. Is this something you've considered or looked at?
No. With all due respect, I beg to differ.
Okay.
Because the best sample and the initial sample has to be looking at the antigen, looking at the virus. That is looking at taking a nasopharyngeal swab or an oral swab. Antibodies develop after a certain period of time. They develop maybe after few days, or it may take even a week, or maybe longer than that. So to tell the patient to wait till the time is not pertinent, is not correct. So antibodies first develop, the IgM antibodies will last for a few days, they'll disappear, and then IgM antibodies will give place to IgG antibodies, which last for a long time. Now, here again is one more crux. None of us have been ever exposed to this virus. When I'm talking about this, I'm going and generalizing that what usually happens with other viral diseases. So I do not know when will the IgM antibodies appear, how long will they last, when will the IgG antibodies appear, how long will they last, or will they last for a long time, or what the process.
But some science journals seem to suggest that without antibodies testing, you cannot track the population infected in an accurate way. Well, and therefore you can't create the isolation needed.
Yes, what they've said is right, in a way that antibodies are required to find out the exposure.
Yes.
Exposure.
Yes.
So I'm trying to put in a very simplistic term for you to understand. Presence of antibodies, like we are doing studies in different parts of the country to see the prevalence of certain disease in certain parts of the country, to see how many patients have been infected, and once they're infected by disease, how long the antibodies last. Like there's a certain very well-reputed group which is doing for chikungunya, malaria in Shillong. Because there's one area where they feel it was not there. The prevalence is very less there. They want to see, once the patients get exposed to this particular disease, when do the antibodies develop. On the other hand, the same group is doing the same thing in certain part of North India, where the disease is very prevalent. They want to see that how many of them have been exposed.
So don't we need that here?
Well, that is a later stage, but at the moment, what is the urgency? The urgency is to protect the patients, to diagnose the patient, to protect the population, So the idea at the moment is that we diagnose, isolate, and move ahead. To look at other aspects is a secondary thing.
Okay. I think we're getting so many different expert opinions that lay people like us are very confused. We did ask ordinary people to send in questions for you, Dr. Dang, and these are coming in via Twitter. We have Swati Singh who says, what measures are being taken by the healthcare sector to ensure that there are enough supplies? We have a dearth of PPE, which you just mentioned, ventilators and other essential supplies. And for how long can social distancing work? What after that?
What you said is right. Social distancing can work for a certain period of time. Social distancing is okay if we have kind of lockdowns, what we have now. But lockdowns have their own limitations. Like here, I must put forward one point to you. My staff staying in Gurugram, they're not being able to commute to Delhi. The roadblocks in the way. The police personnel are asking them that why are you going out there? If there's a patient, so let's not talk about this particular disease. If there's a chemotherapy patient out there who has got confidence in my reports, whom I have been following up with my lab for last so many months or years, want the testing to be done out here, but they're not being allowed to move. So I think we have to be careful or be more discerning about allowing certain movements to happen and to prevent certain to not to happen.
So you're saying your staff has had to face problems at the Gurgaon-Delhi border?
Gurgaon-Delhi border, Noida-Delhi border.
What about public transport? Not everyone owns their own transport.
That is the thing, na? That, see, I can only talk about why I'm talking about my own self is because that's the easiest for me to speak about.
Yeah.
Out of nearly 150 employees which are there, which may be drivers, which may be my housekeeping staff, none of them have their own vehicles. Most of them come by metros. Most of them come by buses.
What are you doing now?
Difficult question to answer as far as today was concerned. I have those who managed to came. Otherwise, I sent my own car to pick them up. And
we've all had to do that actually. Even with our crew and our team, we've had to do that today.
I have limited number of vehicles. I've been sending people to pick them up because healthcare facility cannot stop.
Yeah, this is an important point, and I think you should be able to show your ID and your profession and cross borders. And I think we need some public transport to work based on showing that ID. That's what I think.
But again, the Barkha thing is that one thing lacking, again, I'm saying it on camera, is social responsibility on the part of us all.
Yes.
That हमें लगता है that
हमें नहीं होगा.
That this will not happen to us. As long as the kuda is out of my house, nothing will happen.
That's right.
But I think the best is when you see the flowers blooming on the wall of a neighbor.
Yeah.
Because when you stand outside a window, you only see the flowers which are on neighbor's wall.
Yeah.
What are blooming outside on your own wall, you can't even see them.
Yeah.
So we have to be equally responsible, which we are not, Barkha. That if you saw that video just circulating around yesterday, or people celebrating at 5 o'clock yesterday out in the street, some place in Madhya Pradesh, something like that. So we are not taking our own responsibility seriously.
Yeah.
Government can't do everything. Media has done a great job. Medical professionals are doing the best that they can. But under the existing circumstances, the public has to be more careful also.
I couldn't agree with you more, but we have another question from Vikash Singh for you. Is it possible that a person who's infected with corona shows negative at an earlier stage, first day or second, but after 10 to 12 days, the person gets positive?
Of course, yes. That's why we're recommending dual testing for suspects as per the ICMR guidelines. I won't go to the guidelines. They're on the ICMR website. And request all the responsible citizens to go to the ICMR website and read the guidelines and only get themselves tested when required. But like I said, the average incubation period is about 5.2, where median has got a median about 5.2 days. So if we test negative initially, and you have a history which requires you to be tested, of course you have to get yourself retested again.
So
because the viral load may be too low initially when you are tested.
To pick up. So it could be a false negative.
Yes, it could be a false negative.
Prakash Ratodia has a question. Is it true that COVID-19 being an RNA virus can mutate further and evolve into something more dangerous for the same mutation? What I've read is that it hopefully becomes more benign, but I don't know the answer to this.
Barkha, I have no hesitation saying that even I can't answer this.
Because we don't know for
we
sure.
do not know.
Yeah. There's too much that we don't know. Rajneesh Chauhan has a question. How much does it affect the people who have asthma already, who use inhalers every day?
Exactly. That's a pertinent question. That because then becomes a comorbid condition, then it's more dangerous for people who already have any pulmonary problem.
Wasim has a question. Can door-to-door samples collection help in identifying infected individuals while still being more efficient? And the reason I'm raising this is the West has started to do this maybe to minimize contact or a congregation of people at a laboratory.
Even here, ICMR has recommended sample collection from home, which I think I fully endorse. Recommended.
Yeah.
Even I would like the sample collection to be done from home.
Yeah.
I don't want the patients to be coming to my clinic at all.
Yeah.
Because when they come, they'll be. Firstly, of course, I'll have a separate facility for this thing.
Yeah.
But supposing I land up with 5 suspected patients, I can't be having all of them waiting there at the same time. So home collection becomes the only viable alternative for sample collection, and this I fully agree with.
Last audience question, Kamal Handu, how does a common person make sure that the virus does not enter his or her home? Please keep in mind that emergency service people like gas cylinder delivery, local medicine supply, meter reading wala, electricity wala, local medicine wala will be coming into our homes.
You're absolutely right. What yesterday, which a complete lockdown in the country, was done was lots of people, very intelligently so, they had locked their own gates.
Yeah.
They had put baskets outside and were talking to them
through the gate.
Or talking to them through the security cameras and passing the money, like what you used to be doing in olden days. Through
the
basket,
tokri would go up.
Tokri would go up and tokri would come down.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So people are Indians are very intelligent in lots of ways, and we've got ingenious methods of solving and taking care of problems, and that's the way it is being done.
Final question, sir. Many people are saying we have to be ready for the worst. We can hope that it doesn't happen, but we have to be ready for the worst case scenario. We need stadiums, with beds. We need temporary shelters. We're seeing this happen in America. We're seeing in Italy, Spain, hospital place running short. Our ICU beds per population are among the lowest in the world. What's the most urgent thing to do at this moment?
I'll give the example of so many of my medical colleagues who are doing a phenomenally great job. I do not remember offhand the name. I was reading in one of the groups. This lady has built a 70-bed facility and has told the government, look, here I have a 70-bed facility and you can start using it. Yeah. There are lots of CSR funds which are there. I got a phone call from, again, a very major company that, Dr. Dang, we are prepared to give us a CSR funds.
Yeah.
And I'm quite sure if the government appeals, there will be small and big hospitals which are existing, which can be vacated by them and only used for this thing.
And also hotels.
And hotels.
Yeah.
And so many society flats, so many society buildings which are lying unused. I think if we travel along the Noida highway, we'll come across lots of facilities which are unoccupied, unused. I think this is a time when all of us need to come forward, hold each other's hand, and contribute the best we can to see that this shall pass, and I'm quite sure that this too shall pass.
And what I do want to just add is it's urgent for scale to involve the private sector, and the points you have made about the testing kits, the supply of testing kits and PPE, the protective equipment that is needed, I think the ICMR and the government needs to pay urgent attention to that. Pleasure as always, Dr. Rank.
Thank you very much.